Just how dominant was Micah Parsons for the Cowboys on Sunday? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. And today's episode is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Pick is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less in their Prize Pick projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That is prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Landon, how's it going today, sir?
It's going great. You know, we're getting our first victory tape review, which is nice. Certainly a lot better than looking through last week's tape. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. I think people want us to talk about Micah Parsons in preparation for today's show. I don't know if you guys can see if you're watching on YouTube, but I'm wearing a new Micah Parsons shirt. There you go.
Excellent.
Excellent. NFL Blitz. Shout out to Hamish. Let's talk about him. Just how good was Parsons on Sunday?
I mean, it's hard to kind of put it into words. I mean, I think he was unblockable at times. I think really what's developed this year is that now offensive tackles seemingly are trying to overset him, knowing that he's explosive and he's going to get around the edge and bend around the edge. And now what he's doing is making them pay by getting them with inside moves. I mean, he's so elite at changing direction while not losing any speed that he can get a full burst going around the arc and then just shift like a running back, suddenly just cutting back inside of the tackle as soon as they overset. And it makes protections really difficult. It makes obviously the offensive tackle's job really difficult. And then, ultimately what ends up happening is that because of the dominance that he shows and just kind of a pick your poison sort of pass rush where tails he wins, heads you lose. The offensive coordinators have to kind of compensate by trying to slide protection his way. And then that starts opening things up for guys like Armstrong and Fowler and all that. And then you throw in the other aspect of it is that the Cowboys are doing so much twist and stunts and blitz. And so you don't really know where these guys are coming for. And it just becomes, hell on earth for a quarterback if your wide receivers can't win early. And it all kind of flows through the pressure that Micah Parsons provides.
Yeah, I mean, we're at the point now where if he's left one-on-one with a tackle, I mean, it's almost a surprise if he doesn't get a pressure on that snap, which is kind of incredible. So you saw the Bengals as the game went on, they started to put a running back over there. They started to put a tight end and basically just try to chip him right away to slow him down a little bit. But Dan Quinn had answers. And this is what makes Micah Parsons so much fun is that, okay, you want to line up, an extra tight end on that side. We're going to put Parsons as a middle linebacker and line him up 5 yards behind the center and let him get a running start downhill at the center. He just presents so many unique problems that I don't think there's another pass rusher in the NFL that's anything like him at all.
Yeah, and I think what they could do behind him is they played a lot of shell coverage, and that allowed them to prevent quick shots down the field. And that's why Cincinnati wasn't able to get kind of any big plays, is because A, they didn't have the time for longer developing plays, and B, any kind of quick shots down the field, because they had to get away from Micah Parsons quickly. They were all getting mitigated by the fact that they had safeties over the top. So it kind of just created like a pressure cooker situation for the Bengals offense. And they ultimately what they should have tried to do, or what they were hoping to try to do, was try to kind of run the football, just try to, draw one of the safeties down to help things out, maybe get some more cover 3 looks. But the Cowboys basically lived in cover 1 and cover 2 the entire game. And it basically paid off its spades for them.
Parsons is really like that queen on the chessboard, right?
Yeah.
You can go all over the place. You can move him in any which direction, and he can do it super efficiently, right? Like if you want him to take an inside move against Lyle Collins, he's going to win on that rep every single time. If you want him to line up one-on-one with the center, he's going to win that rep as well. It's just, I mean, Lena, we're getting into some uncharted territory here with Parsons. Like I'm just not sure I've ever seen a player like him before.
Well, the situation too. It's Parsons. Of course, he's a generational player. There's no doubt about that. But again, like Quinn is doing such a great job of getting him good looks, right? Whether it's through the twists or the stunts. There was a 5-man front that they had at one point that was Parsons. It went from left to right from the defensive point of view, right? Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence as the 3-tech, Gallimore as a nose, Sam Williams as another 3-tech, and then Anthony Barr on the outside as a 5-0 front. And it's like, and it was really difficult. And it's not like all four of those guys, 5 of those guys are going straight up. They're twisting, they're turning each other. And so it makes kind of keeping up with the protection very difficult. And then you got another time later where they're showing that mug look that we talked about, where they have the 2 linebackers in the A gaps, but this time it's Leighton Vander Esch and Barr that are the 2 mugging linebackers, and Parsons is the outside pass rusher. And because of the looks, because of miscommunication, Parsons went completely unblocked. That was the play that Parsons went unblocked and hit Joe Burrow. So I think it's definitely Parsons, but I think Parsons combined with Quinn is just unfair. I mean, it's just really, really hurting teams' pressure protection plans.
Yeah, you mentioned another player that I want to talk about in just a second, but that I was actually really, really impressed by in this game. But before we get to him, I want to tell you about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. You can book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip, or get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. Or if you want to test drive that new electric vehicle that you had your eye on, just to see how it fits in with your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms and conditions and exclusions apply. Ditch boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. All right, Landon, let's talk about Leighton Vander Esch, who I thought played a really, really strong game here in week 2. I thought he was pretty good against Tampa Bay in week 1. Thought he was even better here in week 2. What did you see when you watched the tape?
Yeah, he looks like original brand Leighton Vander Esch. I mean, I think, part of what we talked about was that how the Cowboys were playing a lot more shell coverage, which would limit opportunities down the field. And the way you have to live and survive in that is you got to get a pass rush so that they don't just pick you apart underneath. And then you got to have some linebackers who can rally to the football and make tackles when they arrive. That Leighton Vander Esch's play is what allowed them to play like that. His ability to kind of be a linebacker who could fly around and make tackles reliably, dropping into middle zones, sometimes deep middle zones, almost like a Tampa 2. His athleticism looks to be back to where it was, his rookie year. He's just
close to it.
Yeah, he's just flying around and making plays. He's playing smart. He's getting off blocks. He's just very solid as a tackler. He had a sack on a cleanup situation where Parsons flushed him out of the flushed him out of the pocket, and Leighton Vander Esch was there to just kind of clean it up right at the line of scrimmage. So just his ability to, understand what's happening in the defense, the comfort level in the defense, and then just to have a big, fast guy who can rally down to the football when it gets dumped off underneath and limit the kind of big plays when they're just trying to get rid of the football. That's why, that kind of three-piece, right? The pass rush, the shell coverage, and then the rallying to the football to tackle. That's how you get off the field. If you're not going to cause turnovers, if you're going to force teams to play conservative and then rally to tackle so that they don't get a bunch of yards after the catch, that's how you get teams off the field. That's how you get teams to punt. And that seems to be a winning combination at this point for the Cowboys.
Now, if you look at Pro Football Focus grades, since about week 13, week 14 range for Vander Esch going back to last year, I mean, he's been phenomenal. Multiple games over 90 grades. He had a game of a 77 this week or something, 75. Like, he's just been, over the last 7 or 8 games, a very good, reliable linebacker. And the Cowboys have needed that for a while, because what we saw in 2019 and 2020 was certainly not that. I still think Jabril Cox and Leighton Vander Esch are the best pairing of linebackers for Dallas. But what did you see from Anthony Barr in this game?
I thought Barr played well. I mean, I certainly played a lot better football this week. They used him a little bit as a pass rusher. I mean, it's just like I'm going to lump in Fowler here, because I think that Fowler had an incredible game. And the luxury for the Cowboys to have guys like Fowler and Barr, who are veterans, who have been Pro Bowlers, who have had a lot of success in the league, and are just kind of nearing the end of their careers, but are still more than serviceable on limited snaps. To be able to rotate a guy like Fowler in when you need him on key third downs, or just to come in and take a series to give guys like Parsons or DeMarcus Lawrence or Armstrong a blow, is just such a huge luxury. And Barr is no different. Barr actually has had more of a role, because the linebacker, I don't know that they felt completely healthy thoughts about Cox yet. I'm not sure that he's all the way back yet, or at least they are feeling good about the situation where they don't need to rush him back. But Barr, didn't have a fantastic game last week. He had a pretty good game this week. Snuffed out a screen where he got a tackle for a loss. Mm-hmm. Just kind of moving him all different spots in the field. The Cowboys are doing a good job of kind of using him in a bunch of different ways, in ways that kind of fit his skill set well. And I think that it's played off really well. There's times when teams are going to get Barr in a disadvantageous position, just because that's what happens. And not every player on the defense that's on the field at one time is going to be an elite athlete, and offenses are good at finding their mark. But I would say for the vast majority of snaps, Barr was not a detriment. Not only not a detriment, but a huge bonus to this team, and his experience. And honestly, I think playing next to Leighton Vander Esch, you've got two big, long linebackers who know what they're doing on the field, and with all the other speed everywhere else on the defense, it seems to kind of fit when the two of them on the field at times, just to kind of patrol that middle of that defense.
Yeah, with Micah Parsons really being close to a full-time edge guy now, it's allowed Dan Quinn to do some really fun things with the defensive ends, right? You're seeing DeMarcus Lawrence kick inside a lot on even early downs now. Like, that's always been a thing. They used to move him inside sometimes on obvious passing situations, but he's playing inside. Dorrance Armstrong is playing 30 snaps a game as a base end, which means that Fowler is really like your fourth defensive end on this team. And he's always been a guy that struggled a little bit as a run defender. But if you can keep Fowler just on the field in like obvious passing situations, he's going to thrive. And that's what we saw on Sunday. It's just such a luxury to have him as your fourth or fifth defensive end.
Yeah, and I mean, he showed you that he still has some juice. I mean, I really love that strip sack he had. It was so impressive. He was rushing for the 3 on that one, and he took the guard outside, got him to commit too hard, spun back inside. I mean, it was so crazy to watch. Like, he spins back inside, and then all in one motion takes one more lunging step, and then swipes at the quarterback's throwing hand. He had complete awareness of where he was, where the quarterback was, where the ball was. Just really, really great to see. And then, that combined with the opportunities we saw for Sam Williams, who was able to get in there and make a play. It's the depth of that position. It looks really, really good right now. And that could carry the Cowboys quite a ways this season.
All right. Last thing on the defense. I thought Donovan Wilson played a really good game on Sunday. He had a missed tackle early in the game, and then he kind of made up for it. I thought he was good. I thought the coverage was good for the most part, but any final thoughts on the defense before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the coverage was good. I thought overall they were where they needed to be. Listen, I mean, Jamar Chase is one of the best young wide receivers in football, and T. Higgins, the fact that he was able to play and be out there, this is a good wide receiver core, and it's a good quarterback.
It's the best you're going to face all year.
And And it wasn't only the pass rush that was preventing them. They were getting good coverage on those guys. They were able to get some pass deflections. In the times that they were able to get the ball down the field, the guys were there. So no one's being blown off the ball or anything like that. Even the touchdown and that drive where they scored, it felt like Higgins may have pushed off a little bit. That's fine. The point is that you've got your guys there. They'll make that play sometime.
What you're not seeing, Landon, is like what's happening across the rest of the NFL, where you're seeing just massive coverage busts. Again, knock on wood, right? But like you're seeing good and talented secondaries like Baltimore and Cleveland right now. They're just giving up 75-yard plays all over the field because they're just not communicating. And this is one of the good things about the Cowboys bringing back basically everybody in the secondary is these guys have played a ton of snaps together. So, yeah, they're going to get beat eventually just by good plays and good throws. But you're not seeing huge mistakes and miscues in the back end.
I think the best example of that we could possibly provide is, Dan Quinn yesterday in his interview talked about how on that third down play where Trayvon Diggs made the big tackle to kind of save the opportunity to get the ball back to win the game for the Cowboys, the headsets went out on that play, on that third down for the headset communication specifically from the coaches to the helmet went out. And they were not able to relay the play into the field. The Cowboys defense knew what they were playing. They knew what the call was, and they correctly guessed what Quinn was going to call, and they were able to execute. And that, to me, we talk about small things, right? Like that small thing of knowing the defense allowed them to play the way they needed to make the big play on the third down, which got the Cowboys the ball back, which won them the game. So, small things add up, and things like that are kind of positive for the Cowboys now that they had another year in this system of understanding what they're doing.
Right, because I think it may be a little bit less experienced secondary. They probably call a timeout there to make sure that they get the right defense on the field. And even if you get the stop, your odds of going down and winning the game are significantly less if you don't have that timeout at your disposal. So that's why that's such a big deal, on top of Diggs just making an amazing tackle. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the offense. But before we do that, I want to tell you about Prize Picks. How does Prize Picks work? All you have to do is pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on just about any sport that you watch. That includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They are currently operational in over 30 states and in Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to use promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, let's talk about Noah Brown, who had an amazing game in this one. Couple things before we talk about the performance. He went 2,196 days between touchdowns in a game. His last touchdown was, I think it was November 5th of 2016. That's a long time, Landon.
Was that against Oklahoma?
No, it wasn't against Oklahoma. It was against Nebraska. But yeah, the Oklahoma game, he had a lot. Here's what Jerry Jones had to say about Noah Brown today on 105.3 The Fan. I think we're all giving Wilson, he means Noah Brown, our receiver, real kudos because you see what he can do out there. Wilson keeps making big plays. He can go get the ball. He's making those big plays after just reminding everybody what he can do. I think you're seeing this receiving corps evolve and come together right before our eyes. We love Wilson.
I don't blame him for mixing up Wilson and Brown. As someone who's been doing a podcast on this team for a long time, I feel like I've probably made that mistake.
That's funny. That's all.
It is funny. Look, we've been saying this since training camp. Like, there's something different about Wilson this year, and that he's Brown. That's the difference. That's the biggest difference, is that he's Noah Brown this year. He looks like a different player. I think the reason, look, I just got to get into the psychology there. Both Noah Brown and Cedric Wilson, down roster wide receivers who made their mark by doing other things first, right? And then while doing those other things, and I heard a great interview with Noah Brown yesterday where he talked about something his NIL coach had taught, or not his NIL coach, but one of his football coaches in high school had told him that it's important to be good at the things that happen the most on a football field. And I think that's really what's driven him to become a good blocker, become good at special teams. And that pathway allowed a 7th round pick to stick around with the Cowboys for multiple seasons and develop his game, and watch how these other up roster wide receivers developed and how they develop in the offseason. So finally, when his time came, and it probably should have came last year, but Cedric Wilson, the actual Cedric Wilson, had an advantage on the depth chart, took advantage of that, and suddenly the Cowboys were flush with wide receivers. Brown gets another opportunity this year. He re-signs with the Cowboys, and I think it was smart on his part. He knew that he had opportunity here, that he had coaches who liked him. He dropped some weight. He changed his game a little bit, but he didn't change it that much. I mean, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about is besides all the other incredible wide receiver stuff that the receiving stuff he did yesterday was, I think, 5 for 5 for 95 yards or something like that and a touchdown. He also was incredible in the run blocking game as usual, had a key block on several different situations. I just think even when Gallup is back fully healthy, and I know they'll put him on a pitch count and all that stuff, I think Noah Brown needs to continue to have a role in this team because he's done nothing but exceed in the opportunities that we've provided for him. He's done nothing but show up. So I think that he's earned a spot on this team, much the way that his namesake said the real Cedric Wilson did last year. Even after Cedric Wilson showed early success and showed he could do it, the Cowboys continued to feed him and continued to work him in, even after Gallup and everyone and Cooper and everyone had gotten back on the field. He still got opportunities. I think Brown/Wilson should get the same opportunity this year.
We should call him Brown/Wilson. I was a little bit more dubious about some of the Cowboys receivers during training camp when we were getting so many positive reviews about Dennis Houston, Simi Fehoko, and TJ Vasher and Jalen Tolbert. But we'll say the one guy that I always thought had a chance to make a bigger impact this year is Noah Brown, because he's at least kind of done it before. Like, he's the only one that's played a significant amount of snaps. And whenever he did get opportunities, he didn't really ever disappoint. So it's good. It's good to see him making plays. And what's so great about him is, like, key third downs. That's kind of who Cooper Rush was looking for. Even over CeeDee Lamb, even over Dalton Schultz. It's like, hey, I know Noah Brown's going to get open and he's going to catch the ball.
It's because he knows the guy, right? He's had all those practice reps with Noah Brown and the second team. He's comfortable with the guy.
I do think long-term, big picture here, when Michael Gallup comes back, you might have to have a little bit more speed on your offense. I don't know if you can play Gallup, Brown, and CeeDee all at the same time. But I think the point is, you're going to want Noah Brown on the field some way. Maybe it's in two receiver sets, right? Hey, let's give CeeDee a breather here. We can bring in Noah Brown. We can have him do blocking stuff. We can have him play out of the slot. I think he's earned a role in this offense for the rest of the season in some capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether that's, just as a rotational guy in certain packages, I think he has value, and the Cowboys should avail themselves of it. Not be afraid to give their receivers a breather because they know Noah Brown can handle the role.
I agree. Let's just quickly touch on the offensive line. We can talk about Tyler Smith. We talked about a little bit on Sunday's podcast. Matt Farniak struggled. The left guard's a problem for them right now, and I think that'll eventually get solved here in the next few weeks, whether it's Tyler Smith moving back to left guard, whether it's Connor McGovern. But as of right now, that's the one spot on the offensive line that does make me a little bit nervous.
Or whether it's they don't have to play Akeem Hicks and Avita Vea and DJ Reader. And look, I agree. I think Farniak struggled with Reader, but I honestly think that most starting NFL guards struggle with DJ Reader. I think Farniak is an issue, but I also think that it's an issue I'll deal with my third string left guard.
I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
if that's the one spot in your offensive line that's getting you beat, you can survive.
And it wasn't terrible. It's just it looked ugly at times, and they survived it. So I think they'll survive it again next week. It may, hopefully, if they need to, if McGovern can't get back, with no Williams, hopefully it'll be a little bit better. But we'll
hope they let McGovern. Just give McGovern 3 or 4 weeks to get fully back from the high ankle sprain. There's no sense of rushing him back at this point.
I thought, overall the offensive line, they were impressive. I think the synchronization of the unit is greatly improved. They look really good on the hoof. They're moving really well. I really like the mixture of gap, the plays that they were mixing in with zone. So they're still doing 2-to-1 zone to gap plays, but it still looked a lot better. And the kind of constraint element of it really, they really were getting free on those pin and pulls. It felt like where their tight ends could down block and they could get their tackle and guard outside. So I think that the synchronization between the running backs and the offensive line in the run game, especially in some of that power stuff, is really solid right now. So and I know you don't feel this way, but I liked the way that the Cowboys split the running back touches. It was basically an even split, essentially, when you account for the receptions. And I think that the way that they used it benefited both Pollard and Zeke. So I'll be interested to see how they continue to kind of parse that out a little bit. But I think the offensive line played really well. Yeah. I think pass protection was better than I had hoped for, even with Farniak inside. I think Terrence Steele is getting better every single week that we're watching him. Obviously, that's the same with Tyler Smith, but Steele at this point still really, really getting better. I tweeted it out yesterday. I think that everyone was looking for a La'el Collins revenge game, and when in reality it was a Terrence Steele revenge game. Mm-hmm. Kudos to the offensive line.
It's just too bad. It's too bad that Terrence Steele had those penalties in week 1, because I think that kind of clouded people's judgment of how he played. Because, I mean,
he played well. Yeah,
he played well. The penalties are stupid. You can't have those, especially when you're a bad offense, which Cowboys kind of are right now. You've got to minimize as many mistakes as possible. But through 2 games, Landon, he's only given up 3 pressures, and he's been really, really solid. He's not Tyron Smith. He's not a Pro Bowl right tackle, but he's absolutely somebody you can win with on the right side. And if Tyler Smith continues to play this way and you get an upgrade at left guard here over the next month, not saying the Cowboys could have an awesome offensive line, but I think it could be better than maybe we were expecting going into the year, especially after the Tyron.
I'll say it. If the Cowboys get Peters back at left tackle and they kick Smith back into left guard, I won't say that they'll have an elite offensive line, but they will have an elite run blocking.
They should be able to run block. Yeah, that's my hope with the Zeke Pollard thing. Is I think once you get Jason Peters in there and you move Tyler Smith to left guard, that's when I think Zeke is going to become really effective, because then you can just start running downhill and he can start punishing linebackers. But in the meantime, I think you kind of need Pollard's juice in there to give you some explosive plays, because I'm just not sure the Cowboys can sustain a lot of long drives, getting 2-3 yards to carry.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were averaging more than that, but
thanks to Pollard.
Yeah, well, Zeke averaged more than that, didn't he? I mean, he didn't average 2 yards to carry. I mean, anyway,
it wasn't. I just didn't feel like it was a Zeke game in terms of the matchup. I kind of think the Giants game is a much better matchup for him coming up, and I think this is a game where you do want to pound him in the middle of that defense. But yeah, Zeke averaged 3.5 yards to carry.
I think it's important to make sure that you're using a lot of variety in your run game. That's where the Cowboys struggled last year, is when they kind of just were doing the same things over and over again, became very predictable. I think the important thing is to mix up the schemes, mix up the personnel, not just running backs. I mean, the overall offensive personnel, and then take advantages of where you can and just keep them on their toes so they're not, jumping your cues quickly.
We'll see. I just want to see them lean into Tony Pollard a little bit more. And it's probably coming, I'm sure.
It's, look, you got what you wanted. They got a 50-50 split, and you're still not satisfied. I think they'll be okay. They'll get a good split going. Fine. It's working well for them now.
Yeah, so far. We'll see. All right, that is it for today's show. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow, we'll be back to answer your Twitter questions, so get ready to send those in. You can send them to me at Marcus_Mosher. I want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can check out our show on YouTube, Locked On Cowboys over there. You can also download the podcast free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Leighton on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Again, I am at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy your Victory Tuesday. We'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.